Peter Badel, mate, you're back at it again, mate. You've just dropped an exclusive yarn, mate. What can you tell us?
Yeah, look, a huge story for Tim Tszyu. I can tell you that we've broken this story across the News Corp platforms that it is now a done deal with Errol Spence. So they have agreed to terms, the Zoo camp and the Spence camp. This fight is now locked in. It's massive news, of course, Jai. There's been speculation for months now, a lot of innuendo, a lot of speculation about whether the fight would really happen. My information is that they have now agreed to terms. It's happened in the last few days between the camps, and now they will go through the contractual formalities around where the fight takes place, what the date is, the what the fighters are paid, all that sort of stuff. The key minutiae, I guess, but the basics of it is now it's a done deal. Tim Tszyu will fight Errol Spence Jr. What a story for Australian boxing. This is one of the biggest fights we'll ever see in our history. It is massive.
So in other words, the contracts have been signed, Pete.
Well, my information, Jay, is that I don't know if they've actually been signed per se, but they've agreed to terms. So basically, we've got an agreement in principle, and they'll now go through the process of formalising all the contracts. But to have when you agree to terms, it's basically the most, I guess, the critical impediment to getting the fight in place. So look, both parties are amenable to the terms; they've agreed to it, and now there's just one clause in the contract that is critical, and it is that Tim Tszyu beats Dennis Nurya on Sunday, next Sunday, Easter Sunday in Wollongong. So this is a massive predication now. Tim Tszyu has to beat Nurja. If he doesn't, the whole fight falls over against Spence. It's gone down the gurgler. So that is the key caveat to this contract being formalised. They've agreed to terms. Now there's one clause in the contract that Tim must beat Nurya, and if he does that, the fight will go ahead.
What's your understanding, Pete? What are they leaning towards? No limit. Do they want this fight overseas in Dallas, or do they want to bring a big fight back here?
Well, they've been a little bit tight-lipped about this deal, but I've spoken to No Limit previously, and they've always intimated that fiscally it's a better fight for them if it was taking place overseas. Now, there's been some talks about AT&T Stadium, which has a capacity of 80,000. It's the home of the Dallas Cowboys. So that's been one location that's probably the preferred destination, or seemingly so, because Errol's obviously from that area. It's his hometown. So that's been mooted as the favourite venue. But I've also heard, as we know, Jay, there's been talk about, I saw ESPN reported a couple of weeks ago that it could still take place in Australia. My information is that that is still a possibility. I think the favourite venue is America and Texas, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does end up in Australia. But I don't know economically how that happens for No Limit and the promoters. I mean, obviously, Errol would have to be amenable to coming to Australia. He'd have to come at the right price, whether he's prepared to come down under when you'd want the backyard advantage of fighting in Dallas. I don't know, but it would be a huge task for No Limit to try to put together a financial package that brings Errol Spence to Australia. But who knows, Jay? He may want to come down here, see the country, have a test, and probably thinks he can beat Tim Tszyu. But right now, Australia's not out of the equation, is what I'm hearing. But there is seemingly a sentiment that No Limit would like to take the fight to America.
Yeah, mate. Keith Thurman, Sebastian Fundora later today. If Keith Thurman was to spring an upset, Pete, the winner of Zoo Spence could go in a fight, with Keith Thurman, or if Fundora wins and Spence beats Zoo, that's sort of a fight for him. Is that sort of how you see this sort of little mini tournament as such?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think there'd be a lot of people in the Zoo camp cheering on tomorrow for Thurman, because I think if Fundora wins, he's beaten Tim twice, so there wouldn't be a real appetite to take him on for a third time, and I don't think that's going to happen anyway. We think we probably know the result if it did happen. So, look, I'd like to hope that Thurman wins. I'd love to see the possibility of Tszyu fighting Thurman. I mean, it's been speculated for some time. It was meant to happen, of course, in 2024, Jay, and it never did because of that injury to Keith. So, look, I'm fascinated by this fight. I really talk about styles make fights. I mean, he's all action, isn't he, Keith Thurman? I mean, I know there's talk about his age, but he's an all action fighter, sits on his punches, comes at all sorts of awkward angles, supremely fit. And if there's anyone that will take it to Fundora, it is Keith. But I struggle to see how Thurman at his age wins this fight, Jay. I think for me, Fundora just seems to be getting better and winning those titles, defending the titles, seems to have just added another 10% of self belief to him. He just has that aura about him now. Like he feels like the top dog at 154. So I personally think Fundora wins. I'd like my heart says Thurman, my head says Fundora, but ultimately the other question is, Jay, Tszyu v Spence. I mean, who would win that fight? I mean, that is a dead set 50-50. I mean, Errol hasn't fought for 2.5 years. So if he's going to get Errol at any time, now's a good time for Tim.
Mm. What reason do you think Errol Spence wants to fight Tim Tszyu and vice versa? I mean, it's obvious for Tim, he wants a big name and a guy like Spence, but what's in it for Spence?
Well, I guess, Jay, for him, he probably thinks if he's going to have a re-entry to boxing after such a long time out, he probably wants a softish landing and a pretty emphatic start and against a fairly credible opponent. And if you look at someone who, in his eyes, wouldn't be too dangerous, I think he looks at Tim Tszyu and says, well, he's got the gravitas, he's got the name, he's got recognisability in America, and I think he's vulnerable, is what Errol would be saying to himself. I mean, I think there's no doubt that we would agree that Spence is a superior fighter to Tim at his best. I don't think Tim's best is better than Spence's best. So I think Errol would probably see a pretty vulnerable kill in Tim Tszyu right now. I mean, Tim's had, as we know, the tough losses against Fundora. Murders Alive was a tough night at the office in Orlando. So I think Tim's still feeling his way back after Velasquez. We'll see against Nurya whether he's improved, whether he's upskilled himself with another camp under Pedro Diaz. But I think for Errol Spence, he'll have some rust. There'll be some cobwebs to clear away. And you probably don't want to take on some of the real killers at 154. And that's the other question, Jay. I'm still to learn some of the mechanics around what weight this fight will take place at. I don't think that's been formalised yet. There could be some talk around 154, but Spence would have to come up obviously from 147. Do they do a catch weight? That's still that hasn't been worked out, is what I'm told. So there's still quite a few things to work through, but the basics is they've agreed to terms, and there's a clause that is contingent on Tim winning this fight next Sunday.
All right, Pete, what else you got for us, mate, during fight week? What can we expect, mate? Are you looking forward to this one? Tim Tszyu?
I am. I am, Jay. Look, I think I want to see. I want to see a more formidable and emphatic performance from Tim. I was a little bit disappointed with what he did against Velasquez, I must say. I know he was happy to get the 10 rounds out, but I think the old Tim Tszyu, when he had the O against his name and was undefeated, I think he would have got Velasquez out of there in 4 to 5 rounds. So, look, I think this is the type of performance where if he struggles to beat Nurya, I'd have major concerns about him taking on Errol Spence, even though he'll clinch that fight if he wins. So, look, I'm fascinated. He's talked about upskilling himself. He said he's learned a few more technicalities around the Cuban style with Pedro Diaz, and he says he's gone back to more of that Soviet style. He said he got a bit reckless, as we saw against Murders Alive, and he's tried to go back to that sort of DNA in his blood, which is the Soviet style. So, look, I think I'd like to see a better practitioner next Sunday, Jay. I think we'll get that. I think Tim will stop Nurya. That's my confidence. Nurya's never had a loss, so he's obviously a game opponent from Albania. But look, I think the other question to Jay is, of course, Michael Zarafa. There's some talk that he could fight Chris Eubank Jr., which would be a fascinating fight if he can pull that one off. The great Zarafa is in the news again.
What sort of date are we looking at for this one, Pete? Obviously, Tim fight next week. Then he'll need a bit of prep, bit more work with Pedro Diaz. What's your read on that?
Yeah, the info I've got, Jay, is maybe late July or August. So I'm told definitely in that July August block. So they haven't got a specific date yet. I'm told late July, possibly early August. That's the time frames they're looking at. I know that just looking at some images today that Spence is back training. He was doing some bag work today. He did a run with Brian Norman Jr. the other day, so he's just started to ramp up things. So he's getting ready. So that's the strongest sign yet from his side that this is fair income. And I'm told that the fight will take place around July August. There was some talk I read somewhere June. ESPN reported June. I'm told that won't be happening in June. It will be July or August.
Any thoughts on this situation with Jai Opetaia and being stripped of his belt? Any quick thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I feel disappointment for Opetaia naturally. I mean, I'm Australian. I love watching him fight. He's probably our best pound for pound fighter, no doubt about that. So I'm disappointed for Jai, but at the end of the day, I guess rules are rules, and I'm not surprised. I mean, I said it to you in a video a couple of weeks ago, straight after the Glanton fight, that I thought my info at the time was that he would be stripped. I was told it would happen in the next 24 hours. There was some argy-bargy and political manoeuvring to see if there was a way that Jai could retain his belt. But ultimately, to me, it was a breach of the IBF sanctions, their rules. They were in place, they were clear. And to me, I at the end of the day, I'm disappointed for Jai, but I think it was the right decision. Ultimately, I think he deserved to be stripped. I'm not happy about it. I don't want to say. I think Jai is the best cruiserweight in his division. Obviously, I think he can unify, be undisputed one day. But I have to back the IBF on it. I think it was the right call.
When do you head down to Wollongong, mate? When can we see you back on our screens, Pete?
Yeah, so look, I'm due to fly down Saturday morning, Jay, just the day before. So hopefully we have obviously the weigh-ins and look, Wollongong's always a good spot. There's been some good fights there, of course, with Sammy Goodman, and he'll be back on the card. So looking forward. It's going to be a great card. There's some really good fights. Paulo Acuso's on the card as well. So look, no limit. They always deliver. And once again, Jay, what they've done here to put this fight together against Errol Spence. I mean, who would have thought that Tszyu could have done this a couple of years ago, the night he was so badly beaten by Murtazaliev? Who would have thought Errol Spence would appear in the mirror down the road? It's unbelievable, and this is probably the biggest fight for Australian boxing since Horn and Pacquiao and maybe even Kambosos Haney. So massive, massive fight. And this fight week sets it all up. This is huge for Australian boxing. This is a critical moment for Tszyu, and I hope he gets the job done against Nuya. And then bring on Errol Spence, Macca.
All right, Pete. As it stands on the March 2026, who wins? Tszyu-Errol Spence.
Oh, God, I'm just gonna rain on Tim's parade now. Oh,
We'll
look,
wait.
Mac, as again, my heart says Tim, obviously, but I got to say, if it's right now, and I got to put my house on it, my kids on it, my 4 kids, and the others I've got out there, uh, I'll say Errol Spence on points.
There we go. All right, mate. Always good to catch up, Peter Badel, and we'll see you next week, mate.
Thanks, mate. Anytime.
Legend.